Part 1 and Part 2 of this series racked up millions of views, which tells me you love this stuff as much as I do. So, obviously, we're back with Part 3. Because in a league where the average rookie can torch an entire fortune before his second season even starts, there's a select group of superstars doing the exact opposite. We're talking a two-time Finals MVP who guards his Wingstop coupons like state secrets, a Hall of Famer who paid cash for everything he ever owned because he refused to touch a loan, and a man who gave away his entire salary, every single dollar, to build a hospital in his late father's name. These are 10 more extremely rich black NBA players who live like they are poor. Number 10. Kawhi Leonard, the gas guzzler. Let's open with the man who is genuinely a glitch in the NBA's whole system. Kawhi Leonard is a two-time champion, a two-time Finals MVP, and a guy who has signed contracts worth well over $250 million. NBA royalty, full stop. And for years, long into that superstar money, the king of the clutch shot was rolling around town in a rusted 1997 Chevy Tahoe. And this wasn't some vintage collector's flex. This was his actual daily driver, the same truck he had back in college at San Diego State. He even gave it a name, the gas guzzler. So when reporters finally cornered him and asked why a man making $20+ million a year was driving something that looked like it belonged in a junkyard, his answer was so deadpan, it's basically a financial philosophy in one sentence. He said, "It runs and it's paid off." That's it. That's the whole mindset. It works, so why on earth would I change it? But it gets so much better. This same man, with a 9-figure net worth, once genuinely panicked because he misplaced his stack of Wingstop coupons. He wasn't stressed about the price of the wings. He was stressed about losing the deal. He reportedly loves the mango habanero flavor, but he clearly loves the value even more. Kawhi attacks his bank account with the same cold, emotionless precision he uses to lock up the best scorer on the other team. No flash, no drama, no wasted motion. And speaking of players who learned the value of $1 before they ever cashed an NBA check, our next guy turned down a fortune on draft night just to prove a point to himself. Number 9. Chris Paul, the $25,000 test. Chris Paul is called the point god for the way he controls the tempo of a basketball game, but his grip on his own bank account is honestly even more impressive. The man has become the unofficial professor of financial literacy in the entire league, and his whole philosophy was locked in before he played a single professional minute. Here's the story. When Paul declared for the draft as a guaranteed top pick, the agencies came circling with the usual bait. They offered him a $100,000 advance. Flash money meant to cover the fancy draft night suit, the chain, the down payment on a car you don't need. It's a trap that hooks young players into the lifestyle before they've earned a dime. And most kids take every penny. But Paul's parents stepped in immediately, and what they told him is the kind of wisdom that builds dynasties. They told him to reject the 6-figure advance and take only $25,000. Their reasoning was brutal and brilliant. They told him point blank, if you can't survive on 25 grand for a few months, then you are not mentally ready to handle the millions that are coming. Let that sink in. They turned down free money on purpose as a test of discipline. That lesson defined his entire career. Even now, after earning hundreds of millions in salary, Chris Paul is famous for buying clothes with no designer label and preaching to every rookie who will listen about their burn rate, the speed at which their lifestyle eats their money alive. He proves you can sign a max contract and still treat a single dollar with total respect. Our next legend played 22 seasons in this league and somehow walked away with almost all of it. Number 8. Vince Carter, half man, half amazing, all the way frugal. For a generation of fans, Vince Carter was the most electrifying dunker who ever lived, the man they called half man, half amazing. He played an absolutely ridiculous 22 seasons in the NBA, longer than almost anyone in history. And here's the part that should be taught in business schools. He reportedly held on to nearly all the money he made. By his own account, Carter made a decision early that separated him from basically everyone else in his draft class. He decided he would live off his endorsement money, the Nike deals and the sponsorships, and save his actual basketball salary almost entirely. Think about the discipline in that. While teammates were spending their game checks the second they cleared, Vince was treating his salary like it didn't even exist, letting it pile up untouched year after year, season after season, for over 2 decades. He's talked openly about how he was never interested in the flashy car culture or the jewelry arms race that swallowed so many of his peers. He didn't need the world to know how much he had. And because he played so long and spent so little, the compounding on that money turned into a fortune that most 22-year careers simply don't produce, because most guys spend it as fast as it comes in. He's reportedly never been a fan of debt, choosing to pay his way rather than finance a lifestyle. And he's poured his energy and money into his foundation, supporting education back in his home state of Florida for years. Vince Carter gave us some of the most jaw-dropping highlights in the history of the sport. But his quietest, least glamorous move, just saving the money, might end up being the most impressive thing he ever did. Speaking of never chasing the flashy thing and just paying your own way, that's what pulled someone on our team to the Pulse R8 Smart Ring. It tracks your heart rate, your sleep, and your workouts straight from your finger, a week on a single charge, 100 days with the case, and it's fully waterproof. The part that got us was the price. Under $40, a fraction of what the big-name rings cost because it comes direct instead of through the retailers that mark everything up. If you're watching on your TV, pause and scan the QR code on screen with your phone camera, or tap the first link in the description. Because our next entry isn't shy about saving a buck either. In fact, he'll pull out a coupon at the grocery store without an ounce of shame. Number 7. Carmelo Anthony, the Coupon King. Carmelo Anthony is one of the greatest pure scorers the game has ever seen. A lock for the Hall of Fame with hundreds of millions in career earnings plus a massive signature shoe deal with the Jordan brand. This man could buy the entire grocery store. And yet, if you happen to be standing behind him in the checkout line, you might just catch him scanning a digital coupon to save a couple bucks on paper towels. He's admitted it himself, openly, in interviews. Melo is a proud coupon clipper. And to the average person, that sounds completely absurd. Why would a man with a fortune care about 50 cents off a box of cereal? But the answer tells you everything about him, and it goes straight back to where he came from. Growing up in Baltimore, Anthony watched how fast money could vanish, how quickly everything could disappear. That early exposure to scarcity installed a permanent filter on his brain. So for Melo, the coupon was never really about the 50 cents. It's about the principle. It's a flat refusal to be overcharged just because he happens to have the ability to pay. He calls it counting the pennies, and he preaches it to younger players constantly. But here's the part that separates smart frugality from just being cheap. While Carmelo is busy saving small on his groceries, he is spending huge on the things that actually build a legacy. He pours millions into Milo 7 Tech Partners, his own venture capital firm that invests in media and consumer technology. That's the secret the whole list is built on. He knows exactly when to save 50 cents on eggs and exactly when to drop millions on equity. One protects the lifestyle, the other builds the dynasty. Our next man brought a different kind of discipline to the league entirely, the kind you can only learn in the United States Navy. Number 6. David Robinson, the Admiral's Blueprint. They didn't call David Robinson the Admiral just for fun. Before he ever became a Hall of Fame center and a 2-time champion with the San Antonio Spurs, he came up through the United States Naval Academy. And that military discipline didn't just shape his game. It shaped the way he treated every single dollar that ever came his way. While so many stars treat their playing years as a non-stop party, Robinson treated his like a mission with a clear objective, building something that would outlast his jersey. He lived well within his means, avoided the flashy excess that defined the era, and he did something genuinely rare. He started planning his second empire while he was still dominating in his first one. And the results are staggering. After basketball, Robinson co-founded Admiral Capital Group, a serious private equity firm that has managed hundreds of millions of dollars in real estate and investments. This isn't a celebrity slapping his name on a logo. This is a former MVP running a legitimate, high-level investment institution. He turned a basketball salary into genuine institutional generational wealth. But here's what makes Robinson special. The discipline was never about hoarding. It was about giving. He famously donated a then record-shattering amount to help launch the Carver Academy, a school for underserved kids in San Antonio, reportedly putting in around $9 million of his own money to get it off the ground. He lived modestly so he could give enormously. David Robinson didn't just save money. He weaponized his discipline into a school, a business empire, and a blueprint for every athlete who came after him. Speaking of giving it all away, our next player took that idea to a level almost nobody in professional sports has ever matched. Number 5. Jrue Holiday, the man who gave it away. Jrue Holiday is an NBA champion, a lockdown defender feared across the entire league, and a man who has earned well over $200 million in his career. But ask anyone who actually knows the league, and they'll tell you the same thing. Jrue Holiday might be the most genuinely selfless superstar in the entire sport. And in 2020, he proved it in a way that left people speechless. When the league shut down and then restarted in the famous bubble, Holiday and his wife made a decision that most multimillionaires would never even consider. He pledged to donate the rest of his bubble salary, reportedly more than $5 million, to support Black-owned businesses, struggling communities, and historically Black colleges. He didn't quietly write one check for a tax break. He and his wife built an entire fund and went looking for people to lift up with it. Think about what that actually means. While other players in that bubble were complaining about the food and the amenities, Jrue Holiday was effectively playing for free, handing his entire paycheck to people he would never even meet. That is not a publicity stunt. That is a man who decided his money had a bigger job to do than just sit in his account. And it tracks with how he lives. Holiday has always carried himself without the flash, without the noise, without the desperate need to show the world what he has. No fleet of supercars screaming for attention, no obsession with being seen. Just a quiet, grounded professional who clearly understands that the scoreboard he cares about most isn't the one hanging in the arena. Jrue Holiday lives modestly not because he has to, but because he already decided what his wealth is really for. And that is its own kind of championship. Our next man took the boring, unbothered approach to wealth and turned it into a genuine art form. Number 4. Tim Duncan, the man who cooks his own steak. Tim Duncan is the patron saint of boring wealth, and that is the highest compliment I can possibly give him. In a league absolutely full of peacocks, Duncan was a tortoise. Slow, steady, and completely armored against nonsense. His 19-year career with the Spurs brought home 5 championships and nearly $244 million in salary. And he spent those 2 decades looking like an off-duty IT manager on his way to a casual barbecue. The flannel shirts and baggy jeans were legendary, and they weren't ironic. He wore them because they were comfortable, and he saw zero logic in replacing clothes that still worked perfectly fine. While teammates leased the newest Bentleys, Duncan was famously rolling around San Antonio in a customized but decidedly unflashy Oldsmobile. And he loved cars so much he opened his own auto shop, not to show them off, but because to him, a car is a machine you work on, not a status symbol you parade. But here's a layer that doesn't get talked about enough. Tim Duncan, a man with $250 million, cooks most of his own meals. Not for clout, not for an Instagram grilling video. He does it because paying another human being to perform a basic task he's perfectly capable of doing himself just strikes him as illogical. He grills his own steak. He fixes his own cars. He moves through life like a man who never forgot how to just be a regular person. And that complete indifference to other people's opinions, that was his superpower. It protected him from every shark that circles NBA stars. Meanwhile, he quietly donated well over $1 million to youth programs in San Antonio that still run to this day. Duncan didn't just save his money. He saved his energy, his sanity, and his peace. Our next entry doesn't live frugally as a strategy. For him, it's something deeper, something burned into him long before the millions ever arrived. Number 3. Giannis Antetokounmpo, the survivor who never forgot. For Giannis Antetokounmpo, living like he's poor was never a financial strategy. It's muscle memory. Growing up stateless and dirt poor in Greece, he sold trinkets and DVDs on the streets of Athens just to help his family scrape together enough to eat. That kind of survival wires a brain in a way no American-born superstar could ever fully understand. So when the NBA millions came flooding in, they didn't erase that fear. They amplified it. The early stories are the stuff of legend. In his rookie year, Giannis walked into a Western Union and sent nearly all of his available cash straight back home to his family in Greece. He sent so much that he didn't even leave himself enough for a cab to the arena on game day. So what did this future MVP do? He didn't call a car service. He literally started running down the street toward the stadium until a couple of fans recognized him and gave him a lift. And here's the thing, none of that changed when the money got absurd. Even after signing a Supermax extension worth well over $200 million, Giannis kept the habits. He reportedly drove a second-hand Kia deep into his NBA career, simply because it got him where he needed to go. He was famously caught on camera celebrating a free smoothie like he'd won the lottery. He used to share sneakers with his brothers because owning multiple pairs felt unimaginable. He doesn't see his bank account as a bottomless pit. He sees it as a miracle that could vanish if he blinks. He collects free water bottles from the team facility, not because he can't buy water, but because to him, waste itself feels like a sin. Giannis doesn't spend like a king. He spends like a survivor who remembers exactly what an empty stomach feels like. Our next man built his entire fortune on a single, unbreakable rule that most people in this league have never even considered. Number 2. Hakeem Olajuwon, the cash-only king. Before there was any of this, there was the dream. Hakeem Olajuwon is one of the greatest centers to ever touch a basketball, a two-time champion and an MVP who earned a massive fortune dominating the paint for the Houston Rockets. But the way Hakeem handled that fortune is unlike literally anyone else on this entire list, because it was guided by one absolute, unbreakable principle. He refused to go into debt. Ever. As a devout Muslim, Hakeem chose to avoid paying or earning interest for deeply held religious reasons. And in the world of high finance, where every billionaire leverages debt to build their empire, that sounds almost impossible. But Hakeem didn't just talk about it, he lived it completely. He paid cash for everything. When he started building a real estate empire after basketball, snapping up properties all across Texas, he reportedly bought them outright, in full, with no loans and no mortgages. If he couldn't pay for it in cash, he simply didn't buy it. Think about the staggering discipline that requires. While other athletes were financing mansions and leasing fleets of cars they couldn't truly afford, Hakeem was patiently stacking actual cash until he could own things free and clear. No bank owned a piece of him. No interest payment ever ate into his wealth. He built a real estate portfolio reportedly worth hundreds of millions of dollars, brick by brick, without ever borrowing a single dollar. And he lived modestly through all of it, pouring his money into his faith and his charitable work rather than flexing it. Hakeem Olajuwon proved that you don't need leverage, you don't need debt, and you don't need to play the same game everyone else plays. Sometimes the most powerful financial move in the world is simply the patience to wait until you can truly afford it. And that brings us to number 1. A man who took this entire idea of living poor to a place so selfless, it will genuinely stop you in your tracks. Number 1, Bismack Biyombo, the son who gave everything. And here we are at number 1. And this one isn't about a funny car or a clever coupon. This is the story that captures the entire soul of what this series is really about. Bismack Biyombo grew up in Lubumbashi, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and clawed his way into the NBA against odds most of us can't even imagine. Over his career, he earned tens of millions of dollars as a respected, hardworking big man. And then, he did something that almost nobody in the history of professional sports has ever done. In 2021, Biyombo lost his father, Francois. And in his grief, he made a decision that redefines what wealth even means. When he signed with the Phoenix Suns for the following season, he announced that he would be donating his entire salary, every single dollar of it, reportedly around $1.5 million, to build a hospital back home in the Congo in his late father's honor. Not a portion, not a percentage, all of it. Let that truly sink in for a second. This man went to work every single day, battled in the paint against the strongest players on the planet, played an entire NBA season, and took home $0 from it. By choice. He effectively played a full year of professional basketball for free so that the people of his home country, the place that raised him, could have a hospital they desperately needed. a place where families wouldn't have to lose their fathers the way he lost his. That is why he is number one, because every other man on this list lives modestly to protect their own wealth, to build their own legacy, to secure their own family's future. And those are all good, smart, admirable things. But Bismack Biyombo lived poor for an entire year for a reason that had nothing to do with himself. He took the fortune this game gave him and handed it straight to people he'll never even meet. He didn't just live like he was poor, he chose to be so that others wouldn't have to. So that's 10 more, and when you line them all up, a powerful truth jumps right off the screen. From Kawhi guarding his Wingstop coupons to Hakeem refusing to ever touch a loan to Bismack Biyombo, giving away an entire year's salary, this was never really about being cheap. It's about a different kind of championship mindset. So which one hit you the hardest this time? Was it Kawhi and his rusted Tahoe, David Robinson building an entire school, or Bismack Biyombo giving it all away? Drop it in the comments. I really want to know. And if this one moved you even a little, hit that like button, subscribe, and stay locked into Black Status, because this right here is where the real game is always played off the court. Catch you in the next one.